Defender Adventures Live, everybody. If you're watching on this replay, thanks for tuning in. Tonight's topic is something that every UTV owner eventually has an opinion on, and that is service intervals. Do you follow the manual exactly how it is written, or do you do your service based on exactly how hard you ride your machine? So that's what we're going to get into tonight. Let's be honest, most of you are not riding these buggies the way that the manual insists. So before we get too deep into it though, let's set your expectations for tonight. Good to see you, Green. I do not have my tablet set up, or my laptop, I'm sorry. So as the comments come in, I will answer them as I see them on the screen. Good to see you back, bud. As you can see, that is not Yeller Feller behind me. So that's kind of how I got the topic for this evening. I have been servicing a few different Defenders. I did 23 Limited, which you will see coming on the channel, and we will go through a full checklist of how I service these things front to back. And this is a 21 HD8 behind me. We'll also go through it and maybe some of the different things that I done to it. There was a few other issues the customer wanted me to look at. So look out for those coming on the channel. But tonight is not going to be a full breakdown of everything that we look for, because those, like I say, will be coming in the upcoming videos. But we will get into maybe some like fluids, filters, belts, grease points, inspections. Tonight is more of a bigger discussion about when you service yours, manual schedules versus real world riding. Now, like I said, I don't have anything set up. I've been got a full-time job, been doing that and been working on these in the evenings. So I didn't have a lot of prep time for any of this. So I do have some notes here on my tablet that I want to be reading through if you see me looking down. But hopefully it is a good show. Hopefully you get some information out of it, and hopefully you join in the chat. So let's get into it. Get you a cold one if you need one. I do. It's been a long week, and it's only Tuesday. All right. Why do service manuals even exist? Well, they're written by engineers, tested in controlled environments, and they're designed to keep your machine reliable, protect the manufacturer, cover the widest range of riders possible. Because obviously, the people that are writing these manuals, they know the numbers, right? And they want to protect the machine because they do give you a little bit of a warranty with them. Granted, it ain't much, but they are there to give you a baseline or an idea of what you need to do to keep these things in tip-top shape. I do believe that service is key on these things to make them last a long time. So, however, that service manual or the owner's manual that they give you with these machines, they assume that your machine is stock, that you're an average rider, you're on average terrain, and you're going to do it basically average usage. Or as you watch some of the ads on TV, you see the two guys cruising through the field or maybe through a nice easy green trail. That is what the manual assumes that you're going to be riding. And we all know that that's not necessarily how we ride them. But if you're a casual rider and you putt around on the weekends, the manual schedule will work just fine for you. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I know there's going to be a bunch of people out there with a bunch of different opinions. At the minimum, though, stick to what the manual says. Make sure you're doing the service on these things. It really is the life of them. So where manuals start to fail is most of us are not average riders, right? Most of us have these things in mud, in deep water, in dusty conditions in the summertime when it's 90 out and you're on them back roads and the dust is just sucking into this thing, or rock crawling even at low speeds. maybe not so much in the Defender, but it can be done, and I try to prove that. Some long hill climbs or some heavy throttle, the bigger tires you put on them obviously is going to be more wear on all the components of the machine. And the more accessories you add, obviously the more weight that it's going to add to these machines. So the service manual doesn't know whether you've been riding this thing in low range all weekend, whether you buried it in the mud, or whether you ran it in the 95, 100-degree weather all day with the air filter just packed clear full of dirt, or whether you put 35-inch tires on it and added 3,000 pounds worth of accessories, right? That stuff is not in the manual. The manual does not design the service intervals for that type of riding or those type of accessories that you've added to your machine. All it sees is hours and miles and doesn't see the whole story of how you're riding. We'll get into here in a little bit as we go through this, just dig a little bit deeper on how I do my servicing on my machine for the type of riding I do, which I think you guys should be fairly familiar with if you've been following along the channel. But real world riding versus real world service. Let's get into that just a little bit deeper. This is where a lot of experienced riders start adjusting their service schedules, right? This is where you know what you've been riding, you know what upgrades you've done to your machine, you know how much weight you've added in accessories, you know whether you've been riding in hot weather, the cold weather, you know that. The service manual does not. So this is where you start adjusting to the type of riding that you're doing, basically. So that's when you ask yourself, instead of asking yourself, what does the manual say? You should ask yourself, how hard have I rode it? What are the conditions? Does the machine need maintenance? It could be even after one ride. You never know. Whether you're trail riding, mud, like I said, mud riding, rock crawling, desert riding, all of these beat on this machine differently. Even though the miles and the hours on the machine are just numbers, they don't know how particular you've been treating the machine. So let's get into some examples. I don't want to go in here too deep because it's for future videos, but some riders, and like I said earlier, I will get into those. I did a service on a 23 Limited, and that video will be coming out Thursday on our schedule, and I want to break down a checklist on that. And hopefully that'll be a good reference for you guys, just for a normal service, things to go over. And like I say, and then we'll get a little bit into this HD8, because I did do a few different things to it that was out of the ordinary of the normal checklist. But anyways, that'll be upcoming on the channel down the road. So please, please, please keep tuning in and keep following along. But like I say, some riders change their fluids earlier than recommended. That'd be me. Inspect the belts more often. That's what makes these things go. It's always a good idea to keep an eye on them. Grease it more frequently. The old Defender is known for these front A-arm bushings and rear A-arm bushings to take a lot of grease. They get worn out. They get squeaky really quick. Want to keep them things greased. And check things after every ride. I'm not saying I do. I'm guilty of probably not doing it after every ride, but I feel like I have a good idea of how hard I've pushed my machine and what steps I need to take to make sure that the maintenance is kept up to date on it. So let's talk warranty work, right? Because the warranty, which like I say, is not the greatest on these things, but it does come with one. So where does that service manual basically give you the intervals to service it for the warranty versus long-term ownership versus when that warranty runs out? Is the service manual strict enough on something that you're going to keep longer than when that warranty runs out? Now, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. If your machine is under warranty, the manual does matter, because you need to keep to the schedule in the maintenance in the manual. That way your warranty, there is no questions asked. If you go back into the shop with a problem and you got all your records, I've done it by the manual, then there should not even be a question. Warranty should cover any possible, you know, breakages that you have. But once the machine runs out of that warranty, your focus should kind of shift from what does the manual say to what keeps my machine going the longest, especially if you're the type of person that buys something and keeps it forever. Me, sometimes not. But old Yeller feller, I plan on keeping around for a while, so I try to keep the maintenance up